James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.
Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome. I'm James Gailliard. It's the James Gailliard Show right here every Monday from 5 to 6 on Choice 92.1 FM. I'm thrilled, excited that you are paying attention, that you are tuned in. Would you do this and share this with someone? Let someone know that I'm on the air. I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff that's going to make our head hurt today. I want to shout out everybody except for the people that made Dad pay for their own dinner yesterday. Hope y'all had a great Father's Day. I certainly did, and grateful to God for my family. Got a wonderful chance to spend some time, quality time, and, of course, wonderful services at Word Tabernacle Church. It's week 25 of 2024. Can you believe that? Week 25, and this is also the week summer starts. Now, that's crazy to me because it already feels like summer. I mean, how many of you can identify with that? It already feels like summer. If you don't know that global warming is real, if you don't know that there is a real change in our environment going on, it's almost as if we never even had a spring. And here we are right into summer. I'm going to hip you to some things today. That's me being old school. I'm gonna educate you in a massive way today. I'm going to teach you some things about how bills become law. But there's a specific bill I want to talk to you about. You're going to be blown away, I promise you, about what this process was, what's in this bill, what it means for our life. So in a moment, I'm going to jump into that. But I want to say this real quick. The WNBA, they're calling it W now. WNBA continues to not disappoint. Man, I am loving the WNBA. I hope we get a team in North Carolina or a team closer to here. I think our closest team, I guess, is probably in Washington, in the DMV area. But, man, I am loving these ladies. I'm loving their game. I'm loving the physicality of the WNBA. It's mind-boggling to me that the women are more physical than the men. Have you noticed that? And here's the thing that really is like tripping me out, is they don't whine. Like the dudes, the brothers, you tap them and they whine to the ref and all that, especially LeBron, but all of them, they just whining, man. And you don't have that in the WNBA. They are just flat out going at it. I am loving it. Speaking of basketball, NBA game, what's this, 5? Boston is up 3-1 over the Mavericks. It hit me the other day, and let me give you my prediction. I say Boston in 6. I'm going to say Boston in 6. I don't see any scenario by which this goes to a Game 7. I like to think that Dallas is going to at least win one in Boston at the Boston Garden. So we'll see. I think after tonight, we're going to have a 3-2 series, and then Boston's going to be like, all right, enough is enough. Let's go ahead and handle this. So I'm going to look forward to the game tonight. It's going to be exciting, going to be fun. And, it hit me, though, and that y'all know I am not a Dallas Cowboy fan. I am not. Don't tell me nothing about no Cowboys. Under no circumstances. It takes everything in me to just be in the same room with a Dallas fan. It's just, and I have I got a membership full of them. But it hit me that I guess it's not that I'm anti-Dallas. I guess what I am is anti-Cowboys. Because I like the Mavericks. I like some of the stuff with Boston as well. I don't know that I really care a whole lot. But I was at least hoping Dallas would make this competitive. There would be no situation I would feel that way if it were the Cowboys. And so, well, anyway, I want to jump in today. Something happened recently that I want you aware of, and I want to talk about it. There was an approved campaign finance proposal on how funds flow from the state parties and what the reporting requirements are going to be attached to the money. So now, as you know, if you give to a political entity, a campaign, like if I give to the Democratic Party, National Democratic Party, or state party or if I give to a specific candidate, I have to disclose and I have to attach my name. I need to tell them, you do too, but we need to tell them what our name is, who we work for, and what our job is at that company. And we need to check an affidavit that says I'm using my personal credit card, not a business credit card. So the bottom line is you keeping businesses, so to speak, right, out of these local elections. Now, here's the problem that's going on. Pay attention. This is going to be major learning today. The problem going on is that the Republican Party has the worst possible human being that I could think of running for governor. And they're not even remotely lukewarm with this guy. Like they don't like Mark Robinson. I'm going to tell you that right now. The problem is that's who they're stuck with. So because that's who they're stuck with, and because Josh Stein is like raising more money than you ever going to see Mark Robinson raise. And whether we like it or not, elections still, money is important in elections. It just is. And I just throw that in for free. If you need to be very thoughtful to give some kind of contribution to these political candidates, because running for these offices are expensive, and we need to have involvement and activity in this. And so Josh Stein is like significantly outraising Mark Robinson. So here's the twofold problem the Republican Party has. Problem they have is we have a candidate that we don't really want to for real, put our name behind. And secondly, he can't raise the kind of money Josh Stein can raise. So guess what they do? What they do is they insert language into one of the bills. I'm talking about House Bill 237. This is going to blow your mind. They insert language in the House Bill 237 that will allow national political groups to give an unlimited amount of money to state parties and to affiliated political committees as a workaround on campaign finance reporting. So these national groups are called 527 organizations. And so what they do is they collect donations from individuals, from corporations, you heard that, and from labor interests, and then they route some of the money, the funds, to state political committees. Those state political committees can then give the money to preferred candidates. And so what's interesting is that this is a way now to flood North Carolina elections with outside corporate money without there being any disclosure on who is giving the money. So because people didn't really want to attach their name to Mark Robinson because he's so volatile and so hateful, and he's anti-Semitic, he's anti-woman, he's just anti. People like, I'm not really trying to say I gave money to that guy's campaign. Now they can give the money to the state Republican Party, right? And the state Republican Party doesn't have to disclose who gave them the money, and then they in turn can use the funds to give to Mark Robinson. So I want to talk about House Bill 237 because it was not always the case. And so, because understand this, under current state law, corporations and labor groups are banned from donating directly to political candidates. So this now creates an avenue by which labor groups and corporations can bypass state law and give into these local elections, and particularly the governor's election. And so it's interesting because it's really what it's doing is it's disclosing, it's obscuring disclosure requirements. And so so what's interesting is it's gonna obscure disclosure requirements, and then it makes it harder for the state board of elections to provide oversight to the contributions and who's giving to who. So this is interesting to me, and I want to educate us on this. And today's show may not be real sexy, but I'm telling you, what you're going to learn is going to have you scratching your head, and you're going to be like, you know what? I need to vote because this is crazy. So now here's the deal. And I wrote down, you can probably see I got this all this red in here. So I printed out the original House Bill 237 and then the House Bill 237 that just added this provision that I just talked to you about. Now, this is what I want you to realize. The original House Bill 237 goes back to 2023. Actually, I think it got filed in March or April 2023. Literally, the short title of the bill is criminalizing criminal law revisions. And all this bill was an act to criminalize money laundering and an act to establish an enhanced sentence if a defendant is convicted of an offense and the defendant was wearing a mask, hood, or other clothing or device to conceal or attempt to conceal the defendant's identity. Got it? So this bill, House Bill 237, started in the House. So whenever you say House, that means it started in the House. If it was Senate bill, it means it started in the Senate. We're going to criminalize money laundering, and we're going to make sure there's a stiffer penalty if you commit a crime wearing a mask and you wore the mask specifically to conceal your identity as or when you were going to commit that crime. So now this is what happens with this bill. This bill winds up, hits the House in 2023. It goes through the House. As you know, it's got to go to two chambers, right, in order to become law. It goes to the House, finishes the House, it goes to the Senate. So a year ago, May 3rd, 23, this bill, House Bill 237, goes to the Senate. Well, guess what happens in the Senate? Nothing. It winds up sitting with no movement. This happens all the time. Bills either get stuck, they get in one chamber, the chambers are arguing, fighting amongst themselves, and they don't move legislation. So from May of 23 to May of 24, the bill sat in the Senate. Now, somebody comes along then at that point in the Senate and says, hey, let's go ahead and pull this bill back out and let's send it to the Judiciary Committee. Makes sense, right? Because it's a bill relative to criminal law revision. So it then goes to Judiciary, and what they do is what's called a PCS. I'm educating y'all today. If y'all out there, come on, if you're appreciating this knowledge, I'm trying to make you, I want you to understand. The reason I want you to understand is because I want you to vote. And you won't vote if you don't have a real understanding of why it's important. So I want to educate us on the process and all of the trickiness and the shenanigans that's going on when we elect the wrong people. It goes to Judiciary. Judiciary looks at the original House bill. It's like, we're not loving this bill. We're going to change the bill. So they then change the bill. That's called a proposed committee substitute. So inside the committee, this committee's Judiciary, they change the bill. They change the bill, and they wind up then sending the new bill on the floor of the Senate. When the bill gets on the floor of the Senate, this new bill, right, there were three efforts to amend the bill. The first was by Senator Sidney Batch, and the second was by Senator Chaudhry, and the third was by Senator Grafstein, or in some order like that. They tabled the amendment. When they table the amendment, that means that they're not letting it be voted on. They're just saying, we're going to lie it on the table. And they literally lie the amendment on the table. It never sees the light of day. So because there were three Democratic efforts to amend the bill, all three of their efforts got tabled. See, this is the problem with majorities and supermajorities, because they don't have the motivation to operate in the best interest of everyone. Right? So they wind up governing in a way that it only is beneficial to a small subset of people. Listen, here, real talk, let's be honest. If three senators, they have to each represent at least, 100,000 people? I should know that, but I don't know. It's 10.5 million people, 10.5 million people, and there's how many senators do we have in North Carolina? 50 senators in North Carolina. So, they each representing a couple 100,000 people. So they each represent a couple 100,000 people. And three of them try to amend the bill, which means if they each representing 200,000 people and three of them try to do it, that's 600,000 people whose voice didn't get heard, because basically people were like, we don't need to listen to you. So all their amendments get tabled. After their amendment gets tabled, the bill then passes the House. The bill comes, onto the House floor. Remember, it started in the House and it went over to the Senate with a proposed committee substitute. They tried to amend it. They wouldn't allow amendments to the bill. The bill, it does not pass concurrence. So that's what it's called when it starts in one house, it gets starts in one chamber, it gets changed in another chamber, then it comes back to the initial chamber, and it's a vote up or down for concurrence. Well, the House votes it down for concurrence. And the House says, this is what we're going to do. We're going to appoint a conference committee. So then you get a conference committee together from the House and the Senate. They sit down, they conspire over the bill, and they offer what's called a proposed conference committee substitute. Now, they propose a proposed conference committee substitute. It goes to the House, and so everybody agrees, and it winds up being voted on by party lines. 69 Republicans voted for it. 43 Democrats voted against it. Not a single Republican voted against it, and not a single Democrat voted for it. Let me tell y'all, friends, when you have situations where there's no party, every vote is just party line, you know it's a bad bill. So now this is what I want y'all to hear. Do y'all remember what I told you the original bill was? The original bill was to criminalize money laundering and to penalize people if they wear a mask trying to conceal their identity while committing a crime. That was the original bill. Here's the final bill that everybody voted on. This bill got totally changed. Now it's various criminal and election law changes. And I'm going to go through some of this, right? It does all of this stuff. It provides exemptions on various provisions of articles. It literally, it does not allow people to wear a mask who are immunocompromised. Like, you have to have, and I got to find the exact language in the bill, but you literally have to have a communicable disease, right? So you have all of these significant changes that are in this group, that are in this bill. I'm going to try to find my notes while I'm talking to you real quick. And so, but this is the part that I want to get you at. All this stuff that now changes in the bill, and here's the thing. This is a bill about masks. This is a bill that started off about masks. It's a bill that started off about money laundering. The bill now has morphed into a bill that does not allow people who are immunocompromised to wear masks. How crazy. So it literally says you can only wear a mask. Matter of fact, let me read it, because y'all don't believe me. I want you to understand why voting is so important. It says, so it gets into the whole what's exempt from the bill, and then it gets into some of the original language of the bill, and it literally gets into this whole issue about, now I understand there's some things that you can't block streets and while you're protesting, so it's got some of that anti-traffic stopping, gathering in certain places. Some of that kind of language is in the bill. And so it literally now, it forces, so any person wearing a medical or surgical grade mask for the purpose of preventing the spread of contagious disease. Now, listen to me. I've got a whole lot to talk about with this. This is how the language was written. Any person wearing a medical or surgical grade mask for the purpose, this is the original, for the purpose of ensuring the physical health or safety of the wearer. Notice that. If I was wearing a mask to protect my own health or my own safety, I used to be able to do that. This bill strikes that language and changes that language to the preventing of the spread of contagious disease. Let me give you a scenario. You have asthma. The doctor says to you, because you have asthma and it's hot and the air quality is poor, I want you to wear a mask to aid in your breathing. Got me? Now, that would you then wearing the mask for your own safety or your own physical health. The North Carolina General Assembly now says, no, you cannot do that. You can only wear the mask if you have a disease that you might spread to somebody else. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Then it says, a person wearing a mask for the purpose of ensuring the physical health or safety of the wearer or others shall remove the mask upon request by a law enforcement officer and any other file. So all that has been struck. So now with this new law, you can go into a public place and be told by a stranger to take your mask off, and you have to take it off. Now, this was not the original bill. The original bill was you wearing a mask because you're committing a crime and you're trying to hide your identity. Now, this is what I want you to, so y'all hear all this ridiculous and changes, right? But this is the piece. Even worse. This is why you need to vote. We need to vote. What's worse is they add a whole new section to the bill. And the section they add to the bill are gifts from political committees and organizations. It started out a money laundering bill to not wear a mask to hide your identity when committing a crime. It has become a bill to not let sick people wear a mask in public, and harsher penalties for people that boycott and protest and those kinds of things if they have a mask on. And it literally writes in a total change in how money is given to political candidates and parties. People, what does giving to a political party have to do with mask wearing? This is an example of the kind of shenanigans that goes on Jones Street in the North Carolina General Assembly. And so I'm going to give you 4 or 5 more examples of this today on today's show. I want you to recognize the importance of what we're talking about. This is James Gailliard, by the way, and you're listening, watching the James Gailliard Show. I'm about to check all of your comments in just a minute. I am talking about House Bill 237. House bill has just passed both chambers. It is now sitting on the desk of Governor Roy Cooper. You know this because you've been listening and watching my show for a while. Governor Cooper can do one of 3 things with this bill. Governor Cooper can veto this bill. Whatever he does, he has 10 days. He can sign the bill into law, he can veto the bill, or he can allow the bill to go into law without his signature. I can tell you without any hesitation, the governor will absolutely veto this bill. But here's the piece I want you to understand. It won't matter. It won't matter because the Republican Party has a supermajority, and all they're going to do is override the veto because all they need is a 3/5 vote of the members present to be able to override the governor's veto. So because we have a political party that has an unpopular candidate, they have changed the language and the direction of a bill that was just sitting, going nowhere, so that they can find a backdoor way to get more money into political coffers without there being any disclosure and any accountability. This is going to, so let me tell you what's going to happen. So much dark money is going to flood North Carolina. And nobody's going to have to say, I wrote the check for it. Nobody's going to have to do that. And so this is why our voting is so important. Because we need people in the General Assembly, both Democratic and Republican individuals, who have enough integrity and character to not allow these kinds of things to occur. You know, I can tell you, I remember a motorcycle safety bill that had abortion language in it. So it's unbelievable that you write a bill that literally starts off an act to criminalize money laundering, and the bill that comes across the finish line literally said, you won't even believe how long this long title of the bill is. An act to modify the physical health and safety of others. Doesn't that sound so good? But it's not that at all. Exemptions to certain laws prohibiting wearing masks. To enhance punishment if the defendant was wearing a mask or other clothing. Listen to all these things. Or device to conceal or attempt to conceal the defendant's identity. To prohibit gubernatorial executive orders, secretarial declarations, municipal or local government prohibitions. So again, we have all of this stuff in one bill, y'all, that just should not be. I'm up on my first break. I'm going to look and see what your comments are. This is James Gailliard. You're listening to the James Gailliard Show. I'm talking about House Bill 237 and how it has become something it was never intended to be, and now it is backdooring our election process to commandeer money that goes into campaigns without any disclosure or accountability. We're going to pay some bills. We'll be right back.
The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.
Man, we're back, and I see some of you are as outraged as I am. I haven't had a chance to run over to YouTube yet, but I'm here on Facebook, and Melissa said, wow, that's really disturbing. How can that even happen? Melissa, you would be amazed. When you don't have integrity with people in the public office, you have what's called house rules. I'm going to bring it into the studio one of these days. The house rules can tell you like all the things you can and cannot do in the sessions while you're in. But the house rules are only as good as the integrity of the people who write them. And so for those of you that's tuning in, I'm James Gailliard. It's the James Gailliard Show. I'm educating the audience today about House Bill 237 and the journey that it took from April of 23, really April 23 until June of 24. And how a bill that started off about money laundering and not wearing a mask to hide your identity if you were committing a crime has become something totally, excuse me for coughing, totally different. So last Tuesday, while we were gone from air, Republicans approved a campaign finance proposal that changes how funds flow to state parties and the reporting requirements attached to that money. The question is of our audience, why? The reason is because when you have an extreme candidate like they do, they have an extreme candidate in Mark Robinson, you have to find a way to hide the money of the people that are donating to the campaign. And so governor is going to absolutely veto this, but it's still going to become law. So understand what happens. This is House Bill 237. The bill is going to allow national political groups to give unlimited amounts of money to state parties and affiliated political committees and work around campaign finance reporting requirements. It allows, hear this, y'all, wealthy donors to support candidates with an untraceable donation. So wealthy people that own franchises, wealthy people that own businesses can literally then write checks that never get traced. And so this is what we're contending with. LaShawn said more money to push agendas like critical race theory and efforts. Exactly right. Exactly right. So let's talk a little bit. Good to see all of y'all that are jumping on. Welcome to the show. I'm giving you one example of the corruption that exists on Jones Street. And the one thing that's going to change it is our vote. And I want to say this, y'all, because my audience is largely African-American. It's going to take the black vote, particularly the black male vote. I'm going to talk about some of that. I've got a tickle today, y'all. I apologize. Let me give you some other examples of the corruption that goes on Jones Street, all right? Now, I want y'all to tell me how you feel about some of these. Normally, there is about a $10 million a year slush fund that goes into pet projects in certain areas. And normally, that money is split between the Speaker of the House, the Senate pro tem, so the Senate leader, the House leader, and the North Carolina Department of Transportation secretary. So normally they split this $10 million pie, if you will, and they will go into various districts and they will find projects that are favored by their favorite lawmakers, and they'll make sure some of that $10 million goes into those communities, right? I can't make this stuff up, y'all. The last budget, listen to this. The number went from 10 million to 100 million. Remember what I told you? Normally it's 10 million split by Speaker of the House, Speaker, Senate, leader, and North Carolina Department of Transportation. So these are projects. These are building road projects, stuff like that. The number jumped from 10 million to 100 million. And the House Speaker, Tim Moore, Republican in Cleveland County, took half the money. So he spent 50 million of it. He committed, I want you to hear this, for an interstate interchange in a newly redistricted 14th congressional district. So he takes $50 million of the state budget, allocates it, appropriates it to his district that has a newly drawn congressional district that they drew You hearing me, y'all? The district he has drawn, he puts $50 million in it for an interchange and then holds a press conference and announces he's going to run as congressman in that district. Did you hear that? So he literally $50 million so he can now basically fund his own campaign into Congress. That's another example. So we're talking about corruption. I guess the theme of today's show is corruption and why we need to vote. Why we need to vote in big numbers. Let's talk about the budget process. The budget process in North Carolina is a process that historically what would happen is there would be an overall appropriations bill. Now what's happening is that there are what they call these mini bills. And what they're doing is they're also putting policy in the money bill. Money bill is just a way legislators we refer to as the Appropriations Act or the budget. It's called the money bill. It's the most important piece of legislation that's passed in any cycle. And so they're now at a point where instead of passing an overall appropriations, they're going behind closed doors and literally creating these $30 billion budgets with almost no input from the over half of the Senate or half of the House. So what's interesting this year is this last cycle that they literally, so let me just go back. The reason they do that is because if they're passed in many bills, you don't have to worry about the opportunity for debate to the same extent and amendments and all of that. So what's crazy is they're starting now to provide public dollars to private companies. Did you hear what I said? So like this last budget, 2022 rather, budget, had $6 million given to a private company. The company was working on developing a light-based device to combat COVID-19, Emit Bio, E-M-I-T Bio. Here's the thing that I want you to know. Emit Bio has connections to the Speaker of the House. The same speaker that I just told you funneled $50 million into an area where a congressional district was drawn for him. They're owned by a company called No Bio, K-N-O-W, like no, be in the know. Well, the Speaker of the House, he's an attorney. He did legal work for that company. After he did legal work for the company, he helped the founder work his way through legislation for a mixed-use development complex in South Durham that he was a partner on. So I want you to understand, y'all, that it's real corruption going on. Okay, let me give you another example. Hope y'all watching, paying attention today. Let me give you another example. State lawmakers have a provision that in the last state budget that exempts them from public records laws, saying that it would have little impact on record requests. So now there used to be that various things were subject to public record. They have created a provision that does not even make much of what they do now subject to public records. Let me give you another example for all my environmental people, and then we're going to shift gears, and I'll see what y'all are talking about. So for years, what has happened is that they will take the budget and they will put in the budget various kinds of special provisions. And so in 2011 is when the Republicans took over the General Assembly legislature. Once they took it over in 2011, they started writing provisions to give them increased power over regulations. Now, let me tell you what's interesting. When we elect people locally, it's because we know what we want in our community. Now, you would think, when I was moving my daughter into Chicago a couple years back, we went to a Ross, I think it was, and they charge you for like the plastic bag. I'm talking about like that plastic bag, like you gotta pay for it, because what they really want you to do is not use plastic bags. So they make you pay for them. So sure enough, like to this day, that's why as a church we gave out those reusable like shopping little totes that you can take to the grocery store, put everything in there. I highly encourage y'all to do that, by the way. I keep several in the back of my truck. Every time I do the shopping at the house, every time I go to Food Lion, I have my bags with me. First of all, it's so much easier to carry. But secondly, it helps save the environment. So if you're a member of Word Tab, you know, we give those out because we think they're really cool and we want to save the environment and we want to advertise our church while we're carrying it too, right? So hear this. If a community what do y'all think? Let me ask y'all what y'all think. I'm not going to tell you. But if a community said, you know what, we want to stop the use of plastic bags in our community, or we want to stop the use of styrofoam in our county, and we want to create a law that, won't let people use styrofoam because it's bad for the economy. It's getting in the Tar River. Or we want to pass a law where we don't have all this plastic all over the place, right? If you live in a community where your city council or your county commissioner said that's what they wanted to do you think there's anything wrong with that? That's the question. If you lived in a community where your city council, county commissioners, the people that represent you were like, hey, in our community, we don't want to use styrofoam, or in our community, we don't want to use plastic bags. Now, that's my question. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. You're going to be like, this can't be happening in North Carolina. Remember I told you that the budget is no longer just about money, but it's also about regulation and provisions, right? So what the General Assembly did in the last bill, the last budget bill, is they targeted Asheville and Durham. Why? Asheville and Durham are both really, really liberal communities. They have a strong LGBTQ plus population. They are almost exclusively represented by Democrats. That's where the hip folk live. Like in Asheville, it's a very artsy community. Well, in Durham and Asheville, they wanted to curb the use of plastic bags and styrofoams, right, in their area. Not everywhere, just where we live. Well, as a part of the budget, the Republicans inserted language that put a provision in the budget bill, in the final version of the bill, to say that lawmakers, that the Asheville and Durham could not impose those kinds of local regulations. Here's the problem. First of all, if you elect someone locally, they should be able to govern locally, and they should not be controlled by the General Assembly. At least that's what I think. But I think also what's interesting is that it puts the people who vote. So just imagine everything else. Just imagine that budget had teacher increases. It had money for new school buildings. It had money for, Medicaid expansion. It had all of these things that people really love, but it had this one particular provision that basically took authority and power from a local government. And then when the people look to vote for the bill, they're almost forced to have to vote for the bill because there's so much other good stuff in it. Because they know that if they kept the regulations out of the budget bill and they only wanted to create a bill, that most times that bill would not go through. So what they do is they insert the regulation and the provision, and they force people to vote for it because they want to vote for the budget because there's good stuff in it for their community. Y'all, and this is new. The practice of inserting new policy in a spending bill, in a final version of a budget, it used to be, remember I told you there's rules? It used to be against House rules. It was against House rules to like the mid-2000s. And then in 2011, man, when Republicans got in control of the General Assembly, they just got wild with it. So this is James Gailliard. You're watching the James Gailliard Show. I'm educating us about House Bill 237, and I'm educating us about some of the shenanigans that goes on in the North Carolina General Assembly. This is why we need to vote, because we need a General Assembly that's fully representative of all the people. I just told you earlier today that you had 3 senators that represent some 600,000 plus people, and every time they try to amend a bill, which they have the right to do, they are elected also, right? The people elected them, but they got tabled. Their amendments got tabled. They wouldn't even let them see the light of day. I can't tell you how many good bills just literally get sent right to the House to the Rules Committee, and it get buried there. They get buried there just because the bill was drafted by a Democrat, or just because the bill was drafted by a member of the LGBTQ plus community, or just because the bill was drafted by a person of color, or just because the bill was drafted by somebody in Asheville, was that Buncombe County or Durham County. And so these are examples of the kinds of things that's going on in the North Carolina General Assembly. And today is just about corruption and about the need for us to vote. So to that extent, y'all, let me see what y'all are talking about. But to that extent, and I'm not sure if y'all going to chime in on this, very disappointing, but I'm not surprised. Appreciate the knowledge. I'm glad for the information. Good. Glad y'all here for it. This is a congressional immunity clause in the Constitution. To not keep a public records account is almost criminal. It's no question, LaShawn. No question, man. It is criminal. Tell my students all the time that school is a place to learn, navigate the bully. Yep. And we've got bullies here. So so for those of you just tuning in, I'm talking about House Bill 237, how it started in 23 as a bill that if you wore a mask while you committed a crime, you're going to face harsher penalties if you're trying to hide your identity, and a bill to say that money laundering should be illegal or more differently criminalized. And now it has become a bill that does not allow people who have asthma to wear a mask in public. Because it's not threatening the health of somebody else. It's just their own health. And people just seem like that's fine. And how it has now opened up our election process to all kinds of dark money. And so our voting is important. I particularly want to talk to black males, but I want to talk to everybody watching and listening. 60% of black men sit out election after election. 60% of black men are sitting out the election. And we've got to do better. And I think the issue is that the truth of the matter is I don't think for real, we feeling anybody. So even though I think black voters, we're not monolithic, right? So we cover a whole range of issues. It's not just education, it's also healthcare. I mean, all kinds of things that we really care about. But what is coming up over and over again is the economy. And when we talk about the economy, I think that's the issues that has to be prioritized. And when we start talking about the economy, I don't think we're talking about, wages and jobs. I think we're talking about costs. I mean, the cost of vehicles is crazy. I've been looking for a vehicle for my middle daughter forever, man. The costs are just so high. I go into the grocery store for the first time. I'm really I am a unit price shopper. Like, I will check those unit prices in a minute, because you need to do that, because that unit price stuff is crazy. But I am I'm a brand name kind of guy. I don't want the Food Lion version of ketchup. I'm gonna need some Heinz. I don't want, I want Texas Pete hot sauce. So I'm kind of a brand name. I'm a little snooty. I feel like it's better quality. It tastes different. So I'm getting to a point, though, the prices are so high that I'm like, you know what? This week we're gonna have to eat the brand name rice, because it's just a little too expensive. So I think the issue as it relates to the black male vote, and particularly the black vote, is the focus on economy, but specifically the cost of things. And so to that end, there was a poll this week. The poll this week, kickbacks, yes indeed, Ray, and in a major way, man. It's crazy. You would not think that's going on. The thing is, they do it right under your nose. So you need people. I remember when I was in the General Assembly, I was debating the budget bill, and I was debating because Ray used the term kickbacks. I was debating all of, I call it the pork. And let me just be very honest about this. I think every legislator ought to be given $1 million, $2 million that they can spend in their district. I don't care if you black, white, Republican, Democrat. something is fundamentally wrong with a group of people getting 55% of the vote, 56% of the vote, but then having control of 100% of the dollars. Because there's an entire population that is left out of that system. So if I was in office and I was running the appropriations process as a Democrat, I still would make sure Republicans had money to send back home. Because you might have a park you want to, or a fire truck you need in your community, or something. Lord knows we have enough money to do it. So we gave every legislator, 120 of them in the House, $2 million. What's that? $240 million. I mean, the budget $30 billion. So if the senators each got $2 million, that's another $100 million. So $340 million on a $1 billion budget is no money. But instead, a small population of people are hoarding all of the funds, and we need to be able to correct that process. And so let me share with you this new poll. There was a poll last week. It was a USA Today poll and a Suffolk University. And what they did was they polled residents of Michigan and Pennsylvania, because those are both swing states. And they polled black voters. And they had 7 discoveries of black voters. I want y'all to tell me if that's where y'all are. So, first of all, the first thing they've discovered is that Biden is losing support amongst black voters. Yes or no? Is Biden losing your support? If he had your support. He may not have even had your support. Here's what's interesting, though, is that the poll said that Biden is losing support in the black community, but Trump is not popular either, and the black folk are not on the Trump bandwagon. So that's an interesting dynamic. What concerns me more, and I want to put this poll up against you and what you're saying and how you're feeling, what you're thinking. And so it says Biden is losing support. It says Trump is not popular either. It says Kamala Harris is even less popular than Biden is. The poll also says that if you choose Ben Carson, Senator Tim Scott, or Florida Representative Byron Donalds as a running mate, it is not going to help Donald Trump at all in the black community. And I believe that's spot on. The fifth takeaway, let me give you all of them, then we'll take a break. The fifth one is black folk are not buying that Trump is a fellow victim of injustice just because he got convicted. That black folk are not buying it. He is not a victim of injustice. The sixth thing is they believe that when sentencing time comes, that he should get jail time and that they should impose the harshest sentence. I don't agree with that, but I'll come back and tell you why. And then the last thing they say is that third-party candidates like a RFK or somebody like that are increasingly popular. So that's what the poll says about black voters. You tell me, is it accurate or is it not accurate? This is James Gailliard. You are listening to the James Gailliard Show right here on Choice 92.1 FM. I'm going to pay some bills, and we'll be right back.
The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.
Well, hey, I'm back. You're back. We are rounding up today's show. I've talked about a bunch of things today, primarily House Bill 237. I want you to share this information with someone. Would you do that, please, if you have found it helpful? But we're ending the show talking about a USA Today Suffolk University poll that was taken in Michigan and Pennsylvania, and they're polling black voters. And it says that Biden is losing support. I think Natasha says, is he losing it on fact or on feeling? I don't know, Tosh. I think he's losing it on some of both. I know for me, my biggest concern, and I think LaShawn said this, is political stamina. Like, I just don't know that he's healthy. I don't care anything about his age. Let me be really clear about that. Because there's lots of people that I know that are his age, and their mind and body is so sharp. I mean, there's only, 4 years difference between him and Trump? I mean, so for all practical purposes, they're the same age. I mean, that's no difference. So I think my concern is that the president looks weak. He doesn't look strong. You know, and Kamala Harris is just, as I said, according to the poll, even less popular than him. And I do think that represents a problem. It says that a black running mate is not going to move the black community. If Trump had a black running mate, I agree with that, especially if they're Ben Carson, Senator Tim Scott. And I did a whole show, almost a whole show on Florida Representative Byron Donalds a couple weeks ago. I don't think he will get, I don't think former President Trump is going to get jail time. I just don't see the value of it. I don't know how you protect the man. It's a Secret Service nightmare. I just don't know what you do. I'm going to tell you, I feel about him the way I felt about, why am I drawing a blank? OJ. Like, I was one of those folk that I kind of remember, I mean, it's a lot of years ago with the OJ trial. I was kind of feeling like Joker got away with something. But, you know, for you non-religious folk, you would call it karma. You know, for us spiritual folk, we would just say, you reap what you sow, right? God is not mocked. You know, he wound up going to jail for like a sports paraphernalia or something crazy. So I don't think they're gonna give him jail time. I do think they might put him on house arrest or something like that. But the average black person that they polled, according to this, says that you should throw the book at him, give him everything he deserves. I don't know how y'all feel about that. Trump will do no time. The field of candidates is narrow, if not extinct. It's very narrow. No, because there's no one else tied for honesty. I don't like the choices. Thanks, Tammy. Certainly not voting for Trump. I'm with you there. Government's becoming a dictatorship. Black voters need to galvanize urgently. What a great comment. I do think if we show up in big numbers, we can leverage it on the back end. I think if we show up in big numbers, they're going to have to pay the piper. And that's what I want to encourage everyone on my show. That's why I want you to vote. I want you to encourage your sphere of influence to vote. And I want us to be knowledgeable about voting issues. As long as black voters believe one vote doesn't matter or politics doesn't concern them, corruption will compound. It's a good word. Corruption is compounding. You can't afford to risk democracy or living under a dictatorship. Correct. Pastor, do you know why our VP is losing her clout? I don't think she ever had clout, to be honest. You know, here the thing about Kamala, in my opinion, is her resume is impressive. You got to admit that. I mean, like, she was attorney general. She was, you know, a U.S. senator, now vice president. She has a impressive political resume, but I don't know that, you know, we like rhetoric. We like speech. We like communication. We want people to communicate passionately with us and boldly with us and clearly with us. And I don't know that she has pulled that off for us. And so I don't think I don't think she's really losing it. I don't think she ever really had it. And I personally, I said this a while back, but when the U.S. Senate seat a lot of times we don't take one for the team. And sometimes you have to do that. And I praise God for history, her making history and all that. But when the U.S. Senate seat from California came back open, that was hers, or was that another one? But I think the party should have tried to convince Kamala to go back to the U.S. Senate. And we should have then appointed somebody a little bit more palatable to the vice presidency. And I think we missed that opportunity. And so it's just my opinion. I don't dislike the thought of third-party candidates. They just can't win right now. And I don't think we can waste our vote on a third-party candidate. I mean, let's be really clear. If we go out and vote for a third-party candidate, Donald Trump's going to wind up our next president. Be clear about that. So I want to say one more thing. Y'all are awesome. At the next riot, we need teams checking voter registration, being angry without knowledgeable long-term strategy is futile. Thanks, Pastor G. We need this knowledge. Listen, real quick, June is Men's Health Awareness Month. And there is a big push in the United States Department of Health and Human Services and the Office of Minority Health on focus on improving health outcomes for racial and ethnic minorities, American Indians, Alaskan Natives, and men. And the theme is Be the Source for Better Health, and how we improve health outcomes through our cultures, our communities, and our connections. I want to tag this real quick, because on average, men in the United States die 6 years earlier than women, and men are at a higher risk for heart disease, lung cancer, and HIV. And men experience unique health problems that don't affect women, like prostate cancer, because we also have a lot of negative impacts of social determinants of health factors like economic stability, educational access, and quality. Y'all, I'm about to be out of time, but I want to just encourage every man who's listening to take care of your health, to be focused, go for a walk, eat some water. Drink some water, eat some fruit. Be careful in the heat. It's going to be a oppressive summer. Please be careful out there. Exercise, go for a bike ride, do some things to de-stress yourself. Brothers, listen to me. It's Men's Health Awareness Month. Take care of your health, physical, emotional, spiritual health. I want to encourage you to do that. Y'all are the best. I don't know if y'all enjoy watching and listening as much as I enjoy being on air, but I love y'all. Thank you for listening and watching the James Gailliard Show. I'm asking you to share this with a friend, and I'm asking you to talk about substantive matters so we can move our community forward, because we have to educate. We cannot entertain ourselves to a better life. This is James Gailliard. I'm out of time, but I'm not out of talk. I'm out of clock, but I'm not out of content. See you next week.
The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.